Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Tudayambi Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Tudayambi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Tudayambi Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Tatayambi Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Tatayambi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Tatayambi Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from their happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata gate gate parasamgate bodhisoha. Tayata gate gate parasamgate bodhisoha. Tayata gate gate parasamgate bodhisoha. So I think we'll have a silent class today. Let's just smile at each other. Actually, I can do some talking too. And I will continue to smile inner, even if I have a serious face sometimes. But the inner smile is going to you. And your inner smile can go to me and to everybody else there. I hope you know what I mean. Let's radiate universal loving kindness and compassion, universal compassion in everything we do. In other words, bodhicitta intention. In everything we do, whether it's hard work, easy work, whether it's Sometimes it's effortless. Other times you have to make more effort. Let's radiate this loving kindness and compassion always to all living beings. And it will help us to deepen our wisdom, our insight into the nature of reality. As we do that, we are giving up this concept of self, or focusing less on this concept of self, which eventually will help us to break through it, to penetrate beyond all of that nonsense. Isn't it? Four Noble Truths, suffering, in other words, nonsense. And then there's this cause of nonsense, which is nonsense. And then the cessation of the cause of suffering, the cessation of nonsense, and the path leading to the cessation of nonsense. Do you know what I mean? It's belief in a self and other, belief in the self of other as well. The two obscurations or hindrances that we need to destroy, to totally relinquish, to totally extinguish, as we say in one of the lines of the Four Great Vows of the Bodhisattva. So now forget everything I just said and let's practice some meditation. So initially we're going to release the tension from the body, starting at the tips of the toes, working your way up to your shoulders, down to the tips of your fingers, and then back up to the top of your head. So just take a little while now to release this tension from the body. And now bring your focus to your breathing. Starting at the tip of your nose, follow the feeling of the breath as you breathe all the way into your lungs and then back out your nose again. That's all you have to do right now, is focus on your breath. Past is gone, future's not here. If you get distracted somehow with thoughts or any other mental activities, don't worry about it, it's fine. Don't cling to it, don't grasp at it. Don't try to forcefully push it away or deny it. Just let it go naturally by refocusing on your breath. And if your mind becomes dull and sleepy, wake it up a little by focusing more brightly on the breath. Breathing in, breathing out. If you choose, you can also count 1, breathing in, breathing out, then 2, up to 10, and then go back to 1. It may help you focus on the breath more. So let's practice like this in silence for a few minutes. So now you can be very happy with yourself for engaging in this short meditation session and fill yourself with universal loving kindness. It's generated in your own mind, your own heart. You are your own best friend. And even though on occasions we may have difficulties, mental difficulties that actually are generated from our own mind, because of the fact that it comes from the mind, it means with our mind, we can purify them. We can let them go. And one way to do this is to extend loving kindness to yourself. And be compassionate towards yourself. Loving kindness means that you want yourself to be happy and have the causes of happiness. And compassion means that you want to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering for yourself. And you fill yourself with so much loving kindness that you now radiate it. It overflows out of you, radiates initially to your loved ones, filling them with this loving kindness as well. And also to strangers. And to those people that you may find difficult or even regard as enemies. Even those people that behave very badly. In a way, you could say that you are wishing that they cause happiness instead of causing suffering for themselves and others. May these three types of people, our friends, strangers, and enemies, may they all have happiness and the causes of happiness, and be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may they be peaceful. Now radiate this loving kindness to also include all of those living beings around your immediate area. The ones that live in the waters and on the land, under the land, fly through the air. And throughout your whole state or county as well. And other states and counties throughout the whole country. This loving kindness radiating from your own heart or mind. Radiated now to other countries as well. Those you're familiar with and have an affinity towards. Those that you don't know at all. Those that you may even have some sort of negative feelings towards for whatever reason. Have this loving kindness pervade throughout this whole world. And other worlds throughout the whole solar system. And other solar systems throughout this whole galaxy that we call the Milky Way. And all of the galaxies throughout this universe. Now extend this loving kindness throughout infinite space without limit. And at the same time be present here and now to recite the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And so now time to engage initially in the wisdom tool, or utilizing the wisdom tool of hearing, to listen to the Dharma talk, and then in your own time, you'll get to utilize the wisdom tool of contemplation, and then also in your own time, the wisdom tool of meditation. Okay, so now just have a listen to what I have to say. As you know, we're up to the 6th paramita, the perfection of wisdom. We've already covered the perfection of generosity, morality, patience, effort, and concentration. And also we've spent a couple of weeks already on this perfection of wisdom, and we'll continue to do so today, and probably finish up next week, I imagine. Like I said, I'm not going to rush this. And then maybe conclude the whole of the teachings, Bodhicitta, both the relative as well as the ultimate Bodhicitta, in the weeks after that, maybe 1 or 2 weeks after that. Okay, so I'll reiterate what we went through last week, just briefly. We spoke about the objects that we are perceiving with our senses, our physical senses. They're all empty of self-nature. That which we see, that which we hear, smell, taste, and touch. And also the mind itself is also empty of self-nature. And then, of course, the senses, the 5 physical senses, as well as the mind sense, the 6th sense, are also empty of self-nature. And the 6 consciousnesses, which we can include or increase to 8, when you subdivide the 6th consciousness, with add a discriminative consciousness as well as the alaya consciousness, or storehouse, where all of our karma and conditions are stored, you could say. And all of these consciousnesses as well are empty of self-nature. What I just spoke about then are the 18 dhatus, or realms of our self, our mind, but there is no self, is there? Think about that. The 6 senses, the 6 sense objects, and the 6 consciousnesses that arise when these 6 senses and the objects come into contact with each other. But this is constantly changing. It's impermanent. We're having these experiences all the time. So where is the self in them? Are they in the constituents, or one of the constituents? Is it in the I sense, or what it is that we're seeing, the object, or the consciousness, or any of the other senses, or the objects, or the consciousnesses, or as a whole? But actually, if it's always changing, we're always having these new experiences and reacting to them based on our habitual tendencies, the results of our karma, then how can the whole be a non-changing or unchanging permanent self? It's impossible, isn't it? So that's basically what we spoke about last week, and a little bit the week before too. I broke them up into talking about the sense objects, and then of course the senses last week, more to do with what we call the subject and object, this dualistic way of thinking. But really what we were talking about was the 18 dhatus, okay? And they're all empty of self-nature. So that's the summary or the recap from last week, okay? And then I'll just read out a couple of things, once again, just for you to contemplate on these things. I did read them out last week, some little verses that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. So look into the mind, the nature of the subject or the mind that perceives these delusions and objects. This subject or this mind is also empty of self-nature. The concept of subject and object subsides when we're able to look deeply into the mind. We're able to then penetrate beyond this dualistic way of thinking, conceptual way of thinking. Non-duality with mind and the mind objects. in a sense, you could say it becomes one. But even that's erroneous to even say that, because what does one lead to? Two. So actually more it's like zero or infinity, isn't it? Actually, this emptiness is a better word for that. The thoughts, the feelings, appearances, they still arise, but we will not have the tendency to cling to them, to grasp at them, try to hold on to them. But we will let go of the tendency to cling to them as they are as truly existing. And likewise with the subjects. Transcendent wisdom is to leave the mind in the clear realization of this non-dual nature of reality. Okay, so that's where I marked that we got up to last week. Now, I'm just going to, I've made some point notes here. I'll just speak the point notes. When you get an opportunity, unless you're taking notes now, look at the class, look at the video again, either on the YouTube channel or on Facebook, and then contemplate on these point notes. Okay, maybe you can write them down there and then contemplate on them yourself. I'll give some commentary on it, obviously, as well. But maybe sometimes I think it's really good to memorize a short verse. That's why I wrote them. Just memorize the short verse, and then you have it with you all the time, so then you can contemplate on that. Don't confuse yourself by trying to contemplate on too many at the same time. Okay, just one at a time. We can only ever accomplish one thing at a time, taking one breath at a time. And that's truth. I know that people say, oh, I can multitask. No, you can't. You can only really complete fully, clearly, one thing at a time. Okay. Some of you may disagree with me with that one. Multitasking, that's fine. Yeah, worldly stuff. Maybe you can wash the dishes at the same time singing a song, you know, or something like that. But actually, you can do that. But actually really completing it, it's one thing at a time. Okay. So there's no permanent I or other. I think you can agree with that, yes? I think it's really simple on a very gross level, very obvious level, that everything is constantly changing. Yourself and all of the different parts of yourself constantly changing, as well as other people, other things, all phenomena, changeable condition phenomena throughout the whole universe, whether you know about it or not, is constantly changing. I think that's easy to understand. Difficult to penetrate, to get down to the more subtle understanding of this. The constant change is difficult, maybe as a concept you can understand it, but to go beyond that, it's more difficult. You need to practice more, you need to contemplate more, meditate more. You've seen this, I'm sure this teaching I have sort of spread around for many years. The full room is still empty. Okay, that's the quote that it comes from. And people will say, how can a full room be empty? Well, actually, without the emptiness, without the space in the room, how can you fill it with anything? And the space within the room is still the space within the room, even though the room is full. So let's say you fill a room with boxes of whatever. You need the space to be there. You need the empty room to be there before you fill it with these boxes. But is the space or the emptiness, is it disturbed by these boxes? Of course not. Just like the sky is not disturbed by the clouds or the sun or anything that may move through it. It's still there, empty space. Okay. I think you can understand that one. Infinite space. That's the reason why I decided over these classes, and actually in the face-to-face classes for many years as well. When we do the loving kindness meditation, we finish up by sharing this loving kindness throughout infinite space, because it can be infinite. It's called an immeasurable for a reason. And our mind, we should try to develop a mind like this infinite space. And even as we are sentient beings, we will train ourselves to be less affected. So we may have these thoughts, we may have emotions, we may have experiences that could even be unsavory, difficult, but our mind stays very calm, very clear, even though we are experiencing these difficulties. Okay, so that's even before enlightenment. So it's beneficial to try to develop a mind like infinite space. Eventually, you have to even give up the trying, because I think sometimes trying gets in the way of just letting it be, isn't it? And being also gets in the way, because it's being and non-being. We tend to have this dualistic way of thinking. But right now, we need to try it. I mentioned the window, so contemplate the window again. Clean or dirty window? Actually, just window. Not clean, not dirty. But right now, we have to clean it to realize the window. The window stands for your mind. And also, things like an ocean, we just call it an ocean, don't we? It's just kind of like a name that we give to an immense amount of water. Likewise with a river or a lake. It's just called a river, just called a lake. We tend to label everything, impute some sort of sound and concept on everything. But that's not the true nature of these things. Same with a house. These are some examples that I gave you when we were having the commentary on the 5 skandhas. Just called a house. All of the parts of the house, they just have names too. Does the bathroom go around saying, hey, I'm a bathroom? No, we give it a title, we give it a name, we give it a concept. Actually, if you sleep in the bathroom, then it's no longer a bathroom. Then it's a bedroom, isn't it? And if you accidentally go to the toilet in the bedroom, then that becomes the toilet. Don't take that sort of on face value. See it as a teaching as well. Okay. Hope that doesn't happen. Anyway, also the city. You know, really a city is just a name for lots of abodes where people live and work and everything like this. You know, come together in a certain area, community, and society. A lot of the time, because, you know, we have a lot of these modern conveniences these days, like electricity and things. And of course, everybody bunches up there, so they have access to these things. Just call the city, just call the town, just call the village. You know, it's really just imputed sounds and concepts. Same with the forest, just a convenient term for lots and lots of trees, lots and lots of plants, and maybe even the animals and all of the living beings that live within the forest as well. Okay, so page number 3 out of 5. Bye-bye. Never to be revisited again. Actually, that's not true. I'm actually going to keep these and maybe expand upon them with some writing over time too. So I'm alluding here to what we call the 3 natures. Now, this is some teachings from what we call the 3rd turning of the wheel in the Mahayana tradition. In the Mahayana tradition, the 1st turning of the wheel is the teaching on the 4 Noble Truths and the teachings that were recorded in the Pali Canon. The 2nd turning of the wheel is the Prajnaparamita teachings, of which we are having commentary on right now. And then the 3rd turning of the wheel is the Buddha nature teachings. Now, some believe them to have actually been taught in a linear fashion, but it seems more likely to me they were taught all at the same time, depending on the students who the Buddha was speaking to at the time. And because, you know, some people needed to listen to the teachings, the 4 Noble Truth teachings. Some people may have already listened to these previous lifetimes, previous Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, so forth. And so then are more ripe, their mind is more ripe to understand the emptiness teachings and the paramita teachings, and others still the Buddha nature teachings, the fact that we can all attain enlightenment, that is actually our true nature. Okay, so don't get confused by that. You know, sometimes I find that people attach their own tradition that they're involved with, and that's a better attachment than the worldly stuff, but don't let it give rise to you getting offended by the teachings in some other Buddhist traditions. Of course, I believe that these are all teachings of the Buddha. Of course, to me, it can't be refuted. But of course, maybe other people that are clinging want to refute them. Okay, so I'm coming from this standpoint. In a sense, you can say the one vehicle, ekayana, in a sense. You know, all of them are Buddha-yana, Buddha, vehicle of the Buddha, of the Buddhas. Okay, so this one comes from the third turning of the wheel. Just to let you know that it is believed that the first turning of the wheel help us to give up the attachment to self by realizing no self, non-self. Okay. Then these paramita teachings, especially the prajna paramita, or perfection of wisdom, helps us to go beyond the duality of no self and self, even the duality of samsara and nirvana. It's duality because of the way we think, our habitual tendency, okay, or tendencies. So then the Buddha nature teachings said to, actually, this is now the ultimate nature. This is the true nature. This is the, you say ultimate bodhicitta, you can say that this is now tathagata garbha, or Buddha nature. You're ultimately compassionate and wise Buddha nature being unveiled. Okay, so the different levels or different schools will have different interpretations, you could say, but also different ways of explaining the so-called emptiness teaching, okay, and Buddha nature teachings. Okay, so the three natures are, the first two are related to relative reality, and the last one is ultimate reality. So I'll mention the last one first, and that is the ultimate nature, the Buddha nature. Then the relative reality are broken up into two. And the first one is imputed nature. Now, I've been speaking about that already. That's why I was mentioning that before. We impute a name to something. And we impute some sort of concept to something. Then we have the relational nature. Now, this is how things all come into being, you know, through the cause and effect and conditioning. And also what it, like, for instance, let's make it very, very simple. This body that we have is made up of atoms, molecules, energies that are constantly changing. This is like relational. Also, the, you know, the teaching, which I will give some commentary in the near future on, the 12 links of dependent origination or interdependent origination, which is known as in Pali as Paccicca Samutpada. Okay, so the 12 links. Ignorance gives rise to mental formations and things like that. Okay, or dependent on ignorance is karmic formations, dependent on karmic formations is consciousness, and so forth. I'll give some commentary on that, but this is also like how everything is relational. In a sense, you could say the 5 skandhas are also like this. So, but this is still relative reality. And relative reality or conditioned reality is impermanent, has the nature of being unsatisfactory, and there is no self to be found. There's emptiness of self. But the ultimate nature, free from all of these, unsurpassed supreme enlightenment. So I wanted to mention these, okay, because in some time we're going to go into these teachings, and they are all intermingling, interrelated. You could almost say as well the 4 noble truths. The 3rd noble truth is enlightenment, but depends on your mind right now and the minds of the practitioners and what we think that is, what we perceive that is, okay. So any differences between different interpretations, different understandings of the teachings, especially the deeper teachings, actually it happens in the individual's mind. Ultimate truth, how can ultimate truth, even though that's just a title too, but how can ultimate truth be anything but ultimate truth? How can emptiness be anything but Buddha nature? How can Buddha nature be anything but emptiness? Okay, so 3rd noble truth. Then we have, I mentioned the three turnings, no self, realization of emptiness, and then realization of the Buddha nature. I'll ask you a question here. We only have 2.5 minutes to go, but once again, contemplate this one. I've mentioned this before many, many times. This is a teaching that my master Chanting gave to me many years ago now, and asked me to go away and think about it and don't answer. Okay, every time you come up with an answer, it's wrong. Okay, so in other words, to penetrate beyond the conceptual thinking and putting things into words, imputing something on it, Water. Does water exist? H2O, to use the scientific formula. Hydrogen and oxygen, the balance of these. So on a relative level, does water exist? Yes. And no. Both yes and no, and neither yes and no. That's on a relative level. Ultimate level, beyond words, forget about it. And even forget about the forget about. Okay? So, does water exist? Yes, of course it does. I've got some here. Water. Quench my thirst. I had a shower before the class in water. I put my feet in the water at the beach before. Of course it exists. But it doesn't exist as well. Because you take out the hydrogen, no water. Take out the oxygen, no water. Or have an imbalance of these two, no water. Okay, so we'll leave it there today. We're under a minute, I think maybe 30 seconds to go. I wish they counted down the actual seconds. So I hope you enjoyed the class. And once again, we continue to have these classes before we go into, the Q&A classes again for a little bit. And please study well, practice well, contemplate well. Okay, I rejoice in your goodness always. You are wonderful. Remember that always.